So we're all wondering what is going to happen this year. Well, I'm not wondering so much. I know exactly what's going to happen this year, and it's going to be amazing and exciting. The bigger question is, when is it going to happen this year? That's a little bit hard to tell. My magic crystal ball that I bought at Walmart is not showing me exactly when it's going to happen. So we have to look at the price and make our best guesses there. But what better person to be having on with us today than our resident price expert, Paul with Definity. Definity loans him out to us to join us as we review a lot of the top things that's happening. We look at the price action of them, and then we also look at your suggestions from last week that we had Paul on. So let's go ahead and get today's party started so we can get right into the action. Join me, Rainmakers. Welcome to the Crypto Rainn channel. I'm your host, Jay Rainn. If you like money in crypto and are looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with that all notifications bell enabled. Special note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul is not a financial advisor either. We're just sharing with you what we like, what we think of the price action, and our best guesses on what it will do. Now, I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel because I don't talk about cryptos that I don't believe in. Let's go ahead and bring on our special guest, Paul from Definity, to join us. I think our configuration already? Yes, there we go. Paul.
It's great to be here. How's it going?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. I always look forward to these. Paul joins us once a week, usually airs on Thursdays. So, yeah, thank you for joining us. How's this last week been?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So what we talked about over the past few sessions has been panning out in terms of US yields. So we have to look at the macro situation before we get down into the nitty-gritty of, you know, the viewers' picks and the crypto markets. But it's all shaping up sort of as we expected for the early part of the year. But I think we both agree that it's going to be a really exciting year a little bit later, but we just have to sort of play out this short-term correction until the market's ready to move higher. So should I just jump straight into the charts and we can start?
Let's jump into Bitcoin. I'm looking for your thoughts on whether you see possibly a double bottom here or if it might break lower.
Yeah, okay. If I may, I was just going to start off with the chart of the dollar, because of course the dollar is important as to if that's rising, whether people decide to put money on deposit or whether they move it into crypto assets. And so in the bigger picture, if the dollar's going up, it can put some pressure. It's not a one-to-one relationship, but it can put some pressure on crypto assets. I was looking at a triangle here and a breakout to the upside. Actually, the market didn't do that. It went down first and it hit really good support, but the dollar's bounced again. So that's kind of playing out in a way that I thought it would in terms of it being bullish for now. But I think this will turn. And when it turns, that's when we can step on the crypto gas and things will really start moving to the upside. So it's important to see the last phase of this. So that's why I wanted to put it in context. If we look at what's driving this move up, it could well be, and well, I suspect very strongly that it's this rise in US yields. So yields have been going up. This is the 10-year money. So this is what it costs to borrow for the longer term. It's what mortgages are based on and things like that. So this is why the market is really focused on this. And why it's really important from a macro picture. If this is going up, it means that it costs more to borrow, it costs more to create projects. It's also a competition to placing your money in other assets. So as this rises, you're getting a greater yield, so it pulls in money. Also from the stock market too, but obviously we've got this lovely new area called cryptocurrencies that are involved with it as well. Now there's a lot of resistance coming up at this 1.949 area, and obviously what you'll be thinking there is, yeah, 1.949, that sounds nearly like 2. Well, it is. So we're nearly at 2%, and it's those sorts of levels that start to trigger, people in terms of whether they're going to do something or not from a psychological point of view. Because all we're doing is we're watching price behavior when we look at the charts. So yields are still going up, but we may be nearing the end of this yield move, in which case I mean, I'm not saying for sure. If it breaks 2%, it could easily go up another 0.5% quite quickly. But we've got to look at the circumstances with which all of this is happening. Rates are going up, the dollar's strengthening, and if equities start to fall as well, then the Fed have been talking about raising interest rates. They probably will in March, but they might not raise them as many times as we expect, and then everything sort of turns back in the other direction. So that's a really interesting scenario that's building up and has been for a long time. We've been following that in the context of what's been going on in the cryptocurrency markets. But if we start off with Bitcoin, what has been going on here is we've had this attempt to break into a new high. The market failed. It hit a really good support level here at 54,000, which for me is a Rubicon level, and that's a level that once it crosses again to the upside, we are ready for a massive rally. Whilst it's below, I'm extremely cautious. Now, we had another level at 42,000, which it hit bang on, had a massive bounce. But again, this was in the context of this downward trend, and we still got this yellow downward trend line that hasn't, well, it was breached briefly, but we allowed that and said it probably wouldn't be a significant breach and it would come back down. So the market's done that and it's come down to a new low again. Now, this low is so important because it's matching the previous low. So this level now at 39,576 is so massive that if it breaks, you've got to expect another phase to the downside. But I was sticking my neck out a bit and saying, I think this could be an important low where we are now. Now, the price action is sagging a little bit again, which was kind of what I thought it might do that. What would be really good is if it goes up from here, then it will create a short-term double bottom. And that would be enough to maybe take it through this resistance line. And then we could start talking about a short upward phase and then a sideways correction before it goes higher. So I don't think this is going to go down then straight back up again. I think the market is a little bit wounded from this, which is a good thing because it means we can be picking up or looking to pick up Bitcoin and other crypto assets at cheaper prices when they're boring, as you say. So we've got to be careful about predicting lows as well, because we may have another phase down. If this, 39,576 breaks, that's such a big level that we'd have to respect a break of that for another leg down. So what we would do is look at where the next support comes in, and that comes in around 36,000. So we could be at the low. Tentatively, I would like us to be at the low, but I need to see a little bit more evidence. But we're nearer the low than the high, if you see what I mean. In other words, we've kind of like, we're near the end of this phase. Even if we get a short-term rebound, even if it's not sustained, I think the market is due a bit of a correction to the upside. So we do need that dollar to start weakening and yields to come off for a massive rally, and that might not happen until maybe the end of this month, perhaps even a little bit longer. So playing the patient game, I think, is going to be quite important for the moment and for the markets.
That lines up fundamentally, too, with just something going on functionally. In the U.S., there's this rule, and it's not clear that it applies to cryptocurrency, where if they sell an asset, in order to rebuy an asset, they have to wait 30 days in order to get the tax benefits from having realized the gains or loss in the previous tax year. So if they sold that off at the end of December, out of caution, a lot of U.S. institutions and big investors that worry about this kind of thing would wait 30 days in case this rule passes that they're trying to pass that says that rule does apply to cryptocurrency, and they might make it retroactive. So out of caution, my guess is a lot of money just sitting on the sidelines having sold Bitcoin and other bigger crypto assets, and then they're waiting the 30 days. And so that would put us maybe another 10 to 11 or 12 days out before that money comes back in or starts coming back in, right? So that lines up with the charts that this may be the low. It may hover around here. It may break through, and if it does, this is why I don't trade on leverage, because then who cares if it ends up taking a little bit longer. Yeah, if you are trading leverage, man, you do care a lot, and you're sitting there watching it every day. And then if it does break lower, then you can be in some trouble territory.
Yeah, I think that the next upward phase will be so large that it's worth waiting until the market has settled. And I think we've seen some of that in terms of some of the lesser known crypto assets where they need to settle, but once they settle and start moving up, you know, there's some really big gains there. So that's what is exciting about it. But it's difficult waiting. I completely understand. It's like the psychological game of trading. One of my sort of head of tech trading mentors once said that, you know, sitting on your hands is a position, and he was absolutely right, because sometimes you have to make a conscious decision to stay out, but it is a decision. It's something you're trying to do. But you know, but you have to know the difference between that and when it's time to pile in, and there will be some times to pile in. And I think we're seeing some in some of the markets that we've been asked to look at this week, which is really interesting.
Yeah, if we could, before we jump over to those, I want to pull up with Cardano, because maybe it's Cardano's time. A lot of this is hinging on DeFi coming into Cardano with some of the swaps, some of the, I don't know, Sunday Swap has said that they're just about ready for release, and so I think Cardano's been pumping in anticipation of that. There's a lot of DEXs that should be close. Maybe Sunday Swap's the first. Sunday Swap is essentially like Uniswap on Cardano. It's very simple, straightforward function. Swap one token for another. You can't put in price orders or whatever. You just straight swap. So it's the simplest of the different DEXs going on there. And but just even that, if you think about it, Cardano hasn't had that, and so that's been holding Cardano back. It did hit some really good lows. I mean, look at that. Some people could have jumped in Cardano at $1.07. And that price is probably gone for forever again. Who knows? But we're currently trading at, what's that at, $1.48, or is it $1.39 on your chart?
Yeah, that's $1.39 at the moment. Yeah, that was just a resistance level at 148 from before, which actually I can probably just take that off. But you can see this blue line. This is where all the support is. There's massive support. It didn't get there, but this is a corrective phase, and it was correcting when everything else was actually doing okay. And I think what we discussed was this could potentially turn first, because it is a great technology. It was under a cloud before everything else. Now, this is a nice base. This is a decent base, but it is going to find some resistance at the trigger point, which is the top of the previous rally, which is around 158. Also, you see this dotted line that I've left in. That's the trend line from the low. So we know that was a really well-respected line, which is why I like to leave it in sometimes, for the very reason that when it crosses, it can act as resistance. And so okay, it didn't here, but it's done it here. It's just hit it and then come straight off. So I would like to see this. It's come off fairly, not massively, but it's come off a bit. Now, I don't want it to go much lower, and if it turns around and starts to go up, this will make what we traditionally look at as a head and shoulders reversal, which would be a very good sign. So it's not completely out of the woods. This is the resistance line for me, that once it's broken this line and closed over it, it's done enough basing for me to look for a move to the new high or towards it. So I think it's going to sidestep, but it seems like the worst could be tentatively could be over. So that's looking really good. Now, I think we were looking for a buy around here. We were looking for it to be bullish around this area. It had this rally, and then typically you get a fake out where the market just takes all the stops. So this is called it's called a bear trap. So a bear trap is where it breaks a level, everybody goes short or bails out, and then it just swings around and turns around and back up very quickly. So it did a bear trap on us or on the market, and potentially is looking good. So, you know, I like that. I think we've been, erring on the side of trying to find a good level to get in, and it does look like it's finding some support now.
Yeah, for those that are actively trading this, be careful if Sunday Swap's launch gets delayed or whatever. I imagine that the price will take a swing down. A lot of people are near exasperation with Cardano, which is a great thing. Like we like to buy when it's boring. So long-term holders, some people have in their mind just because they think emotionally and they're like, well, if this doesn't come together, then I'm out. Well, okay. Great, and then they dump their tokens if things don't come together, and possibly if Sunday Swap gets delayed and that causes that exasperation, it'll drop the price down for one last time for really good entries is my guess. And so I wait for that. I realize that, you know, human beings shouldn't be impatient when trading, but they are all the time, and thank goodness they are, because that's what creates the fantastic opportunities for all of us that are willing to be patient. You know, when other people, like, you know, Warren Buffett says, when other people get greedy, I get worried, and when other people are scared, I get greedy. It's really that. And a lot of it is impatience and exasperation because people aren't trained to think like this. And this is why in this channel we focus on thinking like an investor, because if you think like an investor, when delays happen, this is the business world, and a lot of people who are trading crypto don't have a lot of experience in the business world. But the better you get how timelines frequently get delayed, things get missed, and it's okay. And in the short term, it might hurt the price of something. That's okay. In my opinion, that creates great buying opportunities, because as long as the team is still working on it and they have a competent team, they will get it figured out. And then all of a sudden, the price goes absolutely crazy. And that's when you sell, and that's when the low information traders are then buying in. Like when the price has already gone 15x, well, that's when I'm like taking profits, right? So, fantastic. I wanted to take a look at that. Do you mind if we jump over to Spores Network, which we've covered for a long time?
Yeah.
And it's been very, very inexpensive, which is when we like to stock up, and it had this huge wick all the way up. And,
this is again one of those ones where I bow to your superior knowledge about these individual contracts, because there was very little to say that this was going to turn from a technical point of view other than a flattening of the downward trend. But this first green bar, you can see, was a little bit out of line with what was going on. So that's the first warning. So you had to be looking out for it. Then this was another warning. So within 2 days, you got these two warnings that things had changed. So, you know, if we drop that off, this is what it looked like. And you could see something was happening. But look at the volume. Someone knew something was going on. That's massive volume compared to what was going on before. So that's a month high. And then we get this massive wick up, as you say. Now, you've been saying that you wanted this to get cheaper, and it has. And it's obviously hit some great levels, and other people have agreed. But there's got to have been some news, I would have thought, that's come out with this.
And I don't know what it is. We did announce that we're going to have the team join us. We were looking for either this Friday or next Wednesday. It looks like it's going to be next Wednesday. And we announced that right about the time it took off. But I don't imagine that's the announcement that made it go absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's going to come on the show. That's what it was.
Yeah, it must be that. It's like the Crypto Rainn channel, you know, of course. But
yeah.
So some of it, like, it's gone crazy, and then some people that are exasperated selling into that, and they're like, oh, sweet, I can finally bail out, which is what kind of corrects it down, creates other re-entry opportunities for those that are interested. Now, it's hard because, like, 0.8 cents isn't as cheap as what you could have got it at, like, 0.4 cents is true. Now, is that a good buy? Will it get cheaper? I don't know the answer to that. It might not. Do I think it's going to do a lot better than this? I absolutely do. I have a lot of spores myself. I have been accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. So I'm expecting it to do much, much better than this. And it previously was as high as, I think, almost 15 cents. If it even just goes back to that, that's about a 20x from here. If it goes back, if it goes way above that, then I mean, this could be a potential 100xer. So I know the team is hard at work creating things. They've only been, like, their token has only been live now for about 6 months, if I'm remembering correctly. It was before September, but sometimes the charts don't fully show when it went live. In fact, because I know before September it was way up at 15 cents. So there's a lot of the history it's not showing here. So that's not a lot of time for a company to have done a lot of things that they're trying to do. And they have been getting good Asian intellectual property rights for some good things. And they've strongly gone after the Asian market, but also they have strong connections in U.S. and U.K. and Canadian IP markets. And so they're doing what they set out to do, and at some point it catches on and the price goes crazy, and then it looks like you're a genius because you bought when it was cheap, when nobody was talking about it except this channel. And it goes absolutely nuts. And then all your friends are like, oh, yeah, where can I buy spores at 20 cents? That looks like a good price. And you're like, well, I was loading up when it was like 0.4 cents and 0.5 cents and 0.8 cents and 1 cent and 2 cents. So
in terms of the actual price action from here, if it can stay within the top end of this first bar, it would be really good. So what we want to see is it consolidate near the top of this range. And then it would be the sort of move that I would say you buy into. Unless we get some form of, triangle or flag consolidation. And all those are, it sounds, really technical, but it just means that the market is going sideways and pausing rather than unfolding its gains. So as you rightly say, there will be people who think, wow, I can bail out of this, so they do it. But if there's something really good behind it, then there'll be more interest to buy on retracements. So we want those retracements to be shallow before we get the next leg up. And this sort of move is usually a kickstart for something big. Because it's such a large move. You can never say 100%. I mean, I'm sure you understand that. I'm sure people understand. You can never say 100% with anything. But what you want to see is a few really sharp green candles, and then a consolidation, and then again, the same thing again. And it would happen very quickly. So this is one you've got to keep a very close eye on, because when it's on the run, it can go a long way fast. Now, it may come back. As you say, and we may have to wait a little bit longer before the consolidation is over. But this is where this is the sort of price action I like, when the market's fast moving, because there will also be people who want to get in and they will be waiting for a pullback in the same way. And the market, in a good market, it won't let you have that. It might pull back a little bit, but you'll constantly be fighting and waiting for that bigger pullback, and it'll just be gapping up and trading up in strong bars. To be fair to it, if it can do that in this environment, it's doing extremely well, because the broader sort of macro picture does not favor, the crypto markets at the moment. And this swings backwards and forwards. When it does, that could really go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. People can see how fast this can move. So whether it pulls back down, this is why dollar cost average, when it goes low, and we identified this flattening bottom. We're like, look, this may be the bottom. Look how flat this is. Just a week ago, and I was like, I love this price. For me, this is 100% load up. And it tripled from where that price was. In fact, a little bit more than tripled. And then it's corrected back down. Now, whether it comes all the way back down to that 0.4 cents again, I can't tell you. I mean, hopefully it does, just for more accumulation, right? Because I would like to have more. Will it? I don't know. I'm fully stocked up on it, but I don't mind buying more because I believe in this project. And that's why I asked them to come on, especially because the timing has been that it's so cheap. So maybe whatever news it was that caused that spike, maybe it kind of gets forgotten again. Maybe Bitcoin drops down and people panic and everyone's panic selling, and it comes all the way back down to 0.4 cents again, should we be so lucky. But this is the kind of stuff I like. I like to buy when it's cheap. I mean, one of the recent gains we've been able to celebrate is our VV collectibles, which I've been talking about since February, have been going crazy. And like I was looking, there was some Marvel comic. So the first digital comic books came out on the blockchain through this VV app, Paul. And there was the Marvel #1, which was the first Marvel comic book ever that was released. And I just loaded up on the commons because I think they released it $7, and you had a chance to get a common, an uncommon, a rare, an ultra rare, or a secret rare version. So people bought a whole bunch of them, and if they just got the commons, they turned around and dumped them for like $4. Well, it seemed like made sense to me that like buy it and it would do well. It is like the first comic book by Marvel ever. So I bought a whole bunch of like $3.98 and $4. Well, those have been trading at $600 and $700.
Wow.
And I picked up like, I think about 30 something of them. And, you know, but buying when it was boring, and people were like, oh, shoot, I didn't get the ultra rare or the secret rare, and then they just dumped them. And so things like Spores, I like to buy when it's boring. I think it's got fundamentally the right things that can do a lot better, and I'm willing to be patient till it does. Let's take a look, too, at Kylin is in here. I don't want to spend too much time on Kylin because we looked at the other week.
Yeah. I think I had a quick look, you know, because I only get to see these just a few minutes before the show. And we've got that spike in there. So I went to the CoinGecko to see whether we could get some decent price action on it. And this is, again, in a similar position without knowing whether this is as good technology as the, you know, as the Spores network. It's in a similar spot in terms of price. It's had a rally, it's come back down, it's flattened out, but there isn't enough as yet. Let me put a logarithmic chart on so I can see a bit better. That's it. So when you start to get to very low levels, you need a log scale, and that is just in percentage terms, because obviously if a market goes from 0.5 cent to a cent, or if it goes from 50 cents to $1, it's doubled. If it goes from $1 to $2, then it's moved $1 in price, but it's only doubled again. So a logarithmic chart kind of puts the percentage moves in perspective. So this is coming back down to, I think, what we talked about last time, this really important long-term support. It hasn't actually dug in the same way that Spores has. So if you want to compare the two, you'll see what we're looking for. We want the market to actually sort of slow down and then go sideways for a bit and then ping up to show that there's some fresh buying coming in and there's a kind of renewed trend there. But until that happens, we don't know whether it's going to break this low. I mean, I'd be tempted as a short-term trader to potentially buy or nibble against a very important low like this, only because you saw on Bitcoin when it hit the previous low, you get a decent bounce, but that bounce can evaporate and it can come back and break it again. So so you've got to be very careful, I think, unless you really know a lot about that particular technology, and you know you're on the right channel to find out.
Yeah, for me, it's bam, I love it. So at that price, it starts to get really attractive to me. So thanks to our viewer who brought this up. If you have your suggestions you want us to look at, put it in the actual comments, not in the chat, but in the comments so that we can review it next week. Because Kylin, good recommendation. For me, that price action is boring. For me, I would, you know, this is where I like to dollar cost average in. And I start loading up, and it might not be the bottom. It hasn't flattened. It's still on that decrease. So I'm not going to go all in. I like to look for that flattening. But this may hit that previous level and then bounce right back up, like Paul said. So for me, absolute buy. I love it.
You're making me want to buy it.
Yeah, I'm patient like that. And I'll wait the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months where what's going to happen is Bitcoin break 100,000. And then money floods in like crazy. And all these alts just go berserk. Even sometimes when they have nothing fundamentally going wrong, right with them, they go up. But the ones that really have something going fundamentally right for them go way, way up. And so that's why I buy when it's boring, and then I wait till something gets in the narrative highlight. And Kylin's strong enough, it will. And then it goes absolutely crazy. So I don't know if your charts can do WASP. WASP is the token for WanSwap.
Yeah.
WanChain is one of our strategic partners, and they've been really good to us. They give us WanChain to give away to our holders every week. And so let's see. Yes.
Is this it?
This is it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Again, I'd have to defer to your knowledge on the actual, you know, technology behind this move, because the only thing I could say at the moment that might suggest a bounce, not necessarily right here but soon, is that when you get in Elliott waves, you get things called 5 waves and 3 waves. and so this is like a 1, 2, 3 wave up, and this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave down, and 5 waves are usually the end of a move. Now, whether that's an end of a move that makes a big rally or whether it's an interim bounce is to be decided. But I can see it tracing out 5 downward waves, and so we're near the end of something. Now, that's for me not quite enough for me to want to buy it. I would rather see it turn around, break some resistance, then maybe pull back a little bit, and then I jump in on the train that's like moving in the right direction. But it could potentially be closer to the end of its trend. It's definitely had a very long bear market, and what we're seeing is, I like to look at the similarities between different cryptocurrencies because you can see some leading the others, and what's going on in Spores is making me wonder whether people are just sort of waking up to these sort of bargain basement prices. So I would still be looking out for something like a flattening out and maybe a jump to indicate that this is going to go. Hasn't done it yet, but I would definitely have it on watch. So it would have to be.
Yeah, it hasn't done it yet. It correlates strongly to WanChain's price, and as WanChain's price goes down, WanSwap goes down faster. When WanChain's price goes up, WanSwap's price goes up faster. And so I have a ton of WanSwap. Why? Because when WanChain goes crazy, then this will go absolutely berserk. And I'm able to get some yield on it anyway, passively waiting. So I have it invested on basically providing liquidity on WanSwap. I'm able to then put that liquidity into this app called Zookeeper. And Zookeeper allows me to get passive income while waiting for it to appreciate really well. So it's been a huge, I love it. What's funny is a lot of people are talking about ZK rollups and optimistic rollups for Ethereum. Now, WanChain developed not only some of the best cross-bridge technology between the chains, but also X rollups that can do up to 10,000 transactions per second. Now, optimistic rollups can do about 400, 450 transactions per second, and ZK rollups can do like 650 transactions per second. So WanChain can function as a better layer 2 with the rollups than those technologies can, and yet all the rage has been about those, even though WanChain has a better tech. Now, what's funny is WanChain historically has some of the best tech. What's been missing is just awareness. And so a lot of times that awareness finally catches on, and then things go crazy. And a lot of this hinges on that awareness catching on, but usually it does. Almost always it does. And then people wake up to it and they say, oh my gosh, this is so underpriced. And then it goes absolutely nuts. So that's why in a greater bull market, I like these undiscovered gems, because it's kind of like you find this clear stone on your land and you're like, wow, pretty sure that's a diamond. You test it, sure enough, that's a diamond. You take it in the gem store and they're like, how do we know that's a diamond? Have you tested it? Yeah, I've tested it. Well, wait till we test it. And then finally they get around to testing and they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's a huge diamond. Well, duh, right? Glad you're aware of it now. So that's a lot of what we do in this channel, is we analyze fundamentals before the whole market's aware. That's why we don't chase these boats that we miss that all the rest of the YouTube channels are talking about. It's like, no, that boat's missed. We're looking for the good stuff because we're about life-changing wealth here. And that happens through research, analysis, finding the gems before everyone else does, taking some risks, and then just being patient while they play out. All right, let's take a look at... I want to make sure we have time at OMI, and then we'll jump back to some of the other suggestions. I know OMI was at the end. Ecomi there, yes. Yeah. Because the collectibles for Ecomi is the token, but the collectibles were the ones I was just talking about, where like the collectibles have gone absolutely berserk. I have a Spider-Man collectible on the VV app. I paid $3,000 for one and $2,200 for the other. They've been trading $85,000 to $100,000.
Wow!
And so we've seen
one might think a couple of $1,000s was quite a lot.
What's that?
One might say, like, you paid $2,000 for something, sounds like quite a lot, but then when you find out it's now trading at $85,000, then you realize what a bargain it was.
Right at the time, it was like, oh yeah, I was mad because I paid like 3,000. I paid 1 ETH, and I'm trying to remember exactly what ETH was trading at the time. I think it was around 3,200 for the first one, and then the price dropped all the way to like 2,200, and you're like, darn, I could have bought it cheaper, but now, like, when it goes up, you don't regret either of the two purchases, right? Like, it doesn't matter that I paid too much for it the first time.
Yeah, it's like you say with depending on your time frame, if you're buying a good technology or something that you envisage other people will want in the future, the actual timing of the levels is less important than whether structurally it's a good product. But what I look for, because I can't, well, I say I can't do this research. I suppose I could do it, but I still always just like to see the chart, because for me, when that's going on, when things are tearing, you see it in the chart anyway. And I don't, maybe it's just like everybody has their own sort of style. Some people like to trawl through sort of documents and technology and stuff like that, whereas I just like to see a picture, and I find it difficult to go through all that text. So it's, everybody's different, which is nice. But in terms of the chart, we've been talking about this for a long time, and we talked about this base, and I remember talking about this breakout because it was such a lovely level. And when something's trading technically nicely, it's really enjoyable. And so, it broke this resistance and made a triangle, which, as you know, I like those. And this is a very short-term triangle. And then we went up to this resistance, and it tried a couple of times and failed. So why I'm pointing out these areas is because this is the area it's coming back to again. It used this support level as support and resistance reverse their roles. This is a brilliant example of how that's worked. So this is resistance where it's struggled to get through. It's come back as support, where when it comes back, people who short it here will have to buy it back here. So there's people trading on the other side of this. So this is why these levels play out again, and it played out here and again here. So this was a really big level at 00485, but now we're trading to the top end of the range. So it needs to break that, which is 0.00825. Now, if it can take that out, there isn't much between that and the all-time high, if that is indeed the all-time high, but it is on this chart. It is. Yeah, so I would say that this is looking good for a breakout. Now, it still has to do it, but it's getting very close to a resistance point. And I think I may have mentioned on the channel before, I'm the sort of person that would try and buy ahead of the breakout. So I might buy it here and then have to wear it on the way down. But as we're approaching this again, I'm getting excited about a breakout, because I know if it gets up through that, then this becomes the next sort of level, going up in an elevator or whatever you want, going up to the next floor. So this area here should act as a floor, and it should be able to work its way up from there. So the fact that it's coming close to this breakout point for me is very interesting. The fact that this is all in an upward trend is very interesting. And I think the structure of that's looking really good. So, again, that's a really good one that you picked. Or was that no, that was one that you picked, not a viewer.
No, this is one of the viewers suggested it, but I wanted to talk about it today anyway. I shared it just the other day when it had broken some previous trends. And I was like, the collectibles are going crazy on this. It makes sense that the token then follows. Now, they are doing some things coming up that give the token more use case. And they've got it on their roadmap. They just have a lot of things that they're doing. And the team is just amazing on this project. And they've done incredible things. They've got the coolest NFTs. Like that Spider-Man I was telling you, it's an NFT on the app. But he's like animated, so he'll do backflips, he'll hang upside down by his web and stuff. Things that NFTs can't do anywhere else. And so, plus it's Spider-Man. It's the first Spider-Man NFT, which is a global character, right?
Right. How do they do that? That's quite amazing.
Yeah. So they have it in their app. And so basically the secret rare version has 2 animated sequences. The ultra rare version has 1 animated sequence, and then the other ones are just like still pictures of it that you can like turn them around, and they're 3D models. But yeah, the other ones are animated 3D models, and they will be having their own metaverse coming soon. And so this token is vastly underrated, and we've been talking about it for forever. And you know, even when it breaks its previous all-time highs of 1.4 cents, it's still going to be relatively cheap, in my opinion, compared to what it's going to do. As the greater crypto world, for whatever reason, the greater crypto world doesn't think about Ecomi that much yet, but they will. And the greater NFT world is just finally woken up to their NFTs, which is why the prices have gone crazy, because a lot of NFT money that's been made on other things has been coming into the VV app and bidding these prices up. I mean, my portfolio on VV probably went from 80,000 to probably 600,000 in the past 4 weeks. So
amazing. Amazing
I know,
stuff.
right? So yeah, it's not quite broken a million yet. We'll see. A lot of times they have some pullbacks. In fact, there's been a little bit of pullbacks, and that's normal. But still, I think some of these things are undervalued. They're just not as undervalued as when we were talking about them for forever, when things were cheap and it seemed very boring and nothing was going on, and the greater NFT space kept not being aware of them. And that's when you could buy like the Marvel comic #1 for say $20 or $30, and all of a sudden it's at $600 and $700. And so that's a solid 20x. It's much better than that. It's 100x if you bought it right away when people dump them on the market for $4 or $5.
Great stuff.
So that's why we buy when it's boring, and why this system just works out for those that are patient. It's amazing. What I like is a lot of people come into crypto and they hear these stories about, oh, so-and-so bought SafeMoon and they put $500 into it. Now they've got $2.5 million. So people win the lottery too, and that's what I equate that to, is winning the lottery. But there's a more secure way of making long-term wealth, is just following this kind of system where you're not as reliant on trying to win the lottery, but you do your research, find projects that fundamentally are sound, and then you place your bets on that while they're boring and nobody else is talking on them about them, and then you wait. And not every one of them will likely pan out. Depends on how good your research is. And then when they do turn out really good, like you get 20x, 40x, 100x, 150x. And so even if not all of them do great, the ones that do bring your portfolio up so much that you do very well, especially if you're buying when there's a big pullback and you're making these picks and the general trend then takes off, because then almost everything goes up and your good picks go up a whole lot. But don't forget to take profits, like even on the VV stuff. Not a bad idea. I took some profits myself.
It's a good idea to get out of your principal. Then
yeah, I sold one of my Batmans that I bought for $80, and I sold it for $12,000. So not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I can't complain. I still have 3 more. One's my wife though, and the other 2 are mine. Let's see. We still got, let's take a look at Cellframe. We've had a number of people recommend Cellframe. And you know what's funny is my audience is often right. Yeah. And so I've learned, like, I always hoped when I started this channel that I would attract the right type of viewers. And it's panned out that way, that I really love this audience. They're really smart. And so when they keep hounding me about a certain thing, they're often right. Now, Cellframe I bought actually on a launch pad in March. Made tremendous money. It went like 20x. Made some money. Sold it. Now looks like a good entry point. For me, yeah. I'm liking these charts. It might come down a little bit cheaper. It may never get back down to there. But still, even at today's price, not bad. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than the 340, almost 340 that it was recently at back in November.
Yes, absolutely. Very good level of support here, which has been matched over here. So it stopped at a very good point. Did a very similar thing to Spores in the sense that it was in this downward trend and then spiked up or kicked off the move, and it's done okay. It's consolidating here for a bit, which is fine. But this looks like a base to me. That looks like a nice enough base for us to say, yeah, let's go to the next level, which is at 139. And beyond that, we'll be looking around 175. So that's doing enough to look good. There's something just slightly different to this chart that I would point out, and it's all these wicks. So the area this is called the real body in Japanese candlesticks, and then these areas above and below are called the wicks. And these wicks are very large, like very large. And I suspect it's a data thing, but I'm not sure. I'd have to sort of double check to see whether it's actually as volatile as this, where it really does trade these massive ranges and then settles in the middle of it. But these wicks are much bigger than usual, so that's given me a sort of I don't know what that's about. Because what I'm looking for is where is the real price action, if you like. So I want real proper traded price action, not kind of noise that sometimes comes in data. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this data. It's just it looks different. We just have to investigate why. But yeah, that's a decent support area that it's held. It's been on a downward trend. This is all rounding off and starting to move up. So what we want to see now is some acceleration. So it's a good time to potentially jump on board. And if it goes down, there is good support very close as well. So it's kind of near the low, but off the low, that's what I like. It's shown its support. It's moving up, but it's still got potential to accelerate.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. Its previous high was back in beginning of April near $5, a little over $5. So it's done, like it's really showing this nice flattening bottom if you were to look at it on CoinGecko. And it shows that it's pretty close to in line with that bottom. Not quite as cheap as it has been. But for me, that's an accumulation zone. For me, this is a strong buy in my personal opinion. For those of you in the audience, make your own decision. That's just my personal bias as an investor, not a financial advisor. So this is when I like to stock up. Not as cheap as it was just recently, though. All right, let's take a look over at what we got next on the plate.
I think this could be, is this the last one? SBank?
We got Solend and Solbank. Let's go through both of those. I'm a huge fan of both of these.
Now, I wasn't sure if this was right, so does that look right?
I'm not sure that's right.
SBank, was it?
I think it's SBNK.
Yeah. So that's,
if you go to Nomics, you'll have it for sure. Let's see.
Okay, I've just got to... My share screen jumps.
Yeah, it's SBNK. No A in there.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's let's try it here. SBNK. So it's right.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Alrighty.
That doesn't give us a lot of history on that though. Just straight nomics will give us the most amount of history. This is one of those tokens that nomics really tracks these first, but it doesn't give us the charting capabilities that some of the other things do.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because that looks very... Okay, that's a one-day chart. That's
if you change it, to...
year to date, yeah.
Try the week, the 1 week, and see. Yeah, there we go. Starting to get some good data. Yeah, and then it's been... Yeah,
that's... Well, to be fair, this is still a downward trend.
Yep.
It's broken its previous low, and it's now kind of fighting back to get back over it. I would be drawing a trend line across all this. I don't know how you do it on this particular one, but I'll be drawing a trend line across these highs, and then if it breaks, okay, fair enough. That'd be a good buy, short-term buy signal. But yeah, this is for me. It'd have to be a wait for now, but I think I might investigate this on a few other platforms after the show and see if I can get a better looking chart somewhere.
There is more history if you scrunch it down on that 1 week. That's probably the right. That'll work too.
Here we go.
There you go. There you go. There's the bigger history.
Yeah. So look, it is below its previous low. So this is struggling for whatever reason. So that it is, to be fair, still getting cheaper. So the question is, what's going to pull it out of this dive? We got to see some price action that pulls it out of this dive before, personally, I could get involved with it. Like you might see something on a weekly chart or a daily chart that would look interesting, but it's not for me enough. You know, it's got to turn around. Say if we had like a big green candle that took out, you know, all these levels and then got to 0.0019 or 0.022 or something like that, then it would kickstart something for me. I mean, this here is the sort of thing we like to see. On this occasion, it couldn't get over this resistance area. So there was a lot of resistance at 0.4 that made it fail. And then there was this sharp move down. When you saw this move here, the momentum from that usually will follow through. So we had like support here and support here. So it just took it out. So it's still operating from whatever happened on that particular day. You know, there's obviously some fundamentals out at that particular point. And, you know, the market's still reeling from that. So that needs to pass. And then, you know, we could look at perhaps some better price action. But for the moment, that's something that I would stay on the sidelines from.
For me, that's a buy. I love it. I think it's right close to IDO and pre-sale prices, which often act as a floor that you're not able to see on the charts, because then when pre-sale investors get out, they're like, oh, and sometimes they'll just dump anyway, and they'll dump below pre-sale prices. Sometimes they'll just be like, no, I'm not selling there. So it acts as like a floor that's invisible on the charts, but it's there, and I think it's right close to there. I think as focus comes back to Solana, which it will, Solana's had some hiccups. That doesn't mean it's not a great chain. It's a great chain. You know, everyone put it on a pedestal like it's the most amazing thing ever, and then it had some hiccups, and then they're like, oh, it's terrible. No, it's just really good tech that's early days. And so then money will come back into Solana. These altcoins along the lines of Solbank will do well. Solbank specifically is going for private transactions so that no government, no entity can track what's happening with your wallet. So they have their own wallet. You can send your transactions securely to other people without anybody being able to see who you sent it to, what your wallet's got, all those kind of things. It's kind of a problem on blockchain where everyone can see what your balance is, exactly what's in your wallet. You know, there's reasons for privacy, and so they also are making then a cross-chain bridge to Monero, so that Monero, which is one of the biggest privacy chains and a lot of money on it, can then cross over to Solana and specifically into that wallet. And, you know, there's an appetite for that. And you sometimes see the privacy narrative come on strong, and when it does, something like Solbank will go crazy, especially since the market cap is so cheap. All it takes is a few whales coming in and being like, oh, and throwing a tidbit of money at it, and it just blows up and the price goes huge. And so that's one of my riskier bets. I have $30,000 riding on Solbank, my narrative on Solbank being right, because I think I am. And that's an outsized risk for how small the market cap is, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I like that one, and I don't think I'm wrong on it. So for me, at that price, I love it. I love it. Make your own decisions. Like, maybe you're not as risky as I am. That's cool. Like, that's my thing. So don't feel like in the audience you have to do it because I'm doing it. Make your own feel through on that and whether it makes sense to you, and do your own research on it.
I mean, if you're with something like that, like you say, it's a level where if you took a small position, like nibbling at it, it could turn into something much bigger. And I think it's sometimes nice to buy, you know, just put a little bit in, because it makes it easier to buy some more when it starts to go up.
Yeah, kind of like
the way you talk about it makes me want to buy it, I have to say. I would be breaking a technical rule if I did.
Yeah.
But I should be watching it very carefully.
Yeah, it's kind of like I paid $3,000 for that Spider-Man, or 1/8, maybe it was like $3,300 at the time, and then it went cheaper, and I was like, drat! I mean, great, because then I'm going to buy another one. And now we know how that narrative turned out. Was I right on that? Absolutely. I was massively right on it. But for a while, it was unclear, because it dropped down, and it's like, ooh, well, let me just buy it while it's cheaper, because that sometimes happens. Like, it's impossible to know if you're truly at the bottom. You look for indicators, look for signs, and all it does is give you percentage chance. It doesn't tell you exactly what the future holds. Nothing does. My
Yeah.
Walmart crystal ball does not work. So I have to make guesses on, where things are at. And I tend to be a pretty good guesser, but I'm not always right. So let's take a look at the very last one, which is Solend, which I was massively wrong on, kind of, in the short term. But I bet I'm massively right in the long term on this.
So what's the code for that, please?
SLND.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have looked at this before, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into a log chart. So this is a classic, this downward trend is a classic, what we call descending triangle pattern, which is a continuation bearish trend. So I'm just setting this up so you know what levels to look for in the future. And so this level here would be a very strong shorting position. So anyone who would be operating on the technicals would be looking to short it at this level.
Yep.
So this is why it's so important. If we get back to 354, it will possibly struggle to break that initially. But if it gets through it, then things have changed, and changed in a big way. Now, the size of a downward trend is usually indicative of how long the basing pattern has to be before the market turns around. So what am I saying by that? What I'm saying is that the market might need to go sideways for quite some time so investors can, consolidate their views on it, and then start to pile back in. So for me, this is a great lead into what might be happening in the future, because you've got so many green candles in one go, and we've got the support. So the support is in. There's a stake in the ground, if you like, saying, right, this is where we think it's cheap, really cheap. And then now it's operating from here. So you can have a base. So this is all basing out from now. So it needs to do a little bit more work, but I like it. I like the fact that it's turned around. I like the fact that this has been a really good run of green candles, in which case you'd expect a pullback. So this is absolutely fine. It's not like it's doing this into a new low. It's doing it having rallied. So it's pausing for breath, but then this trend should continue. But really where I'd get very excited if it takes out this 354 level. If it breaks it, closes over it, that's, again, a really good sign. So
and it looks like it might be February, March, or even into April before it really is ready to go the other way. I just dollar cost averaged into some more of this because it's got the right backers behind it to do really well, like good long-term backers. Like I think it was Alameda Research and Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken. I tend to follow those, especially when they're in. And sometimes in the short term, doesn't mean it won't dump. But in the long term, it tends to go really, really well. And so, yeah, I'm excited about that one. So, heck, I pray that I'm wrong more in the short term and it gets even cheaper, because then, especially if other things are doing well, then I can sell my other things that are up and buy more of what I'm excited about at really cheap levels. So that's the way I operate. I believe in a man upstairs, but I don't always pray to him that things will go up. Sometimes I pray to him that things I'm interested in, that I already have positions in, will dump cheaper. So that
you may be one of the few, if only, people in the world who do that. But that's a great thing, and what a great community to pull out such brilliant markets. So thank you. They're really great to look at, and really looking forward to seeing what happens in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe next week we'll talk more about metaverse stuff. I'll tell you my thoughts on land, because you touched on that a couple times. If you haven't made some purchases into some metaverse land, I think that will do exceptionally well. However, some of the existing metaverses that have done well, like your entry-level price already so high, Paul. So sometimes it's the up-and-coming ones that you can buy things at a reasonable price and have some metaverse land that, as it goes that direction, you get kind of, I think your friend is right, that land in the metaverse will do crazy things, especially on the ones that end up hitting mass adoption. They'll do really crazy things. We're talking like London price levels, New York City price levels, Hong Kong city price levels, right? So
I'm already excited for next week.
All right. Thanks, Paul. For our viewers out there, if you're ready to level up your crypto game, if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Now, we take a contrary view to what a lot of people do. So if you're not supplementing your learning by this channel, why are you not doing that? We have a totally different take. So whether you're here for life-changing wealth, some of you for wife-changing wealth, or just a really nice house or a really nice car, strap in. The next number of months are going to be a wild ride. Turn on that all notifications bell so you get notifications on every single one of our videos. Come, because we talk about the things that rewire your brain so that you FOMO in at the bottom and that you panic sell at the top, because that's how you make real money. It's as simple as buying cheap and selling high, but most people don't do that because their brains are wired to buy high and sell low. So thanks for joining us. We have this wrap for all of you in the audience. You know what this is. For those of you who are new, this is just a wrap to reinforce the principles that we talk on this channel about every time, and it just reinforces, just hearing this rap reinforces the principles we talk about so that they kind of rewire your brain over time. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was boring, like a Rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I sit the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a Rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic, they dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the gain show. Sticking out this wrong consumer will come a bear market. We're learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go Rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crappy. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, but time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.